Hi, I'm Todd with Preparedness.com. Thanks for watching another video. Hey, not too long ago I put up a new poll on Prepper website. I asked everyone, how long have you been prepping? And I was kind of shocked or astonished to find out that the majority of people that come to the site, 52% have been prepping for 5 or less years. And so, it got me kind of thinking about all the stages that we go through in preparedness, because I'm sure there's a lot of you maybe watching this video who are at those different stages. I remember that first stage that I went through when my eyes were first open. It just one of just shock in realizing that, man, this world could end at any time, right? That anything could happen. There are so many things, balls up in the air, that anything could happen, and it was kind of scary. I remember reading Lights Out one summer and going back to work in the school and just kind of walking around, and everybody is busy getting their rooms together and busy doing getting ready for the school year. And I was just walking around thinking, man, at any moment here the world could end, and what would happen if that happened and we had a school full of kids. And got over that pretty quickly, but it was still kind of scary. And you might be there too. So maybe you're reading about an EMP and how bad that would be, or maybe you're concerned about a financial collapse, or maybe it's just something kind of simple. You live on the coast and you've seen some bad things happen, with hurricanes or whatever. But you realize that there's some scary stuff out there, and so there's this feeling of just fear, and you don't want to stay in that stage too long, because that fear will grip you, and that fear will just cause you not to do anything. And so I think there's a lot of people out there that don't do anything because it just feels like there's just so much, and like, why in the world would I even try? What's the use in it, Another stage that you go through pretty quickly after that is that overwhelming stage, because it's, you realize there's a lot of things, once you get your wits about you, you realize that there's a lot of things you should be doing. And so it normally goes to, hey, I need to be buying a bunch of junk. And so, you go to the store and you say, I need this, I need that. You look on the internet or you read articles, and it's like, wow, I should have this, I should have that, I should have a bug out bag, I should have, a year's worth of food, I should have, a bug out location, a bug out vehicle, all this other stuff. And, you kind of get overwhelmed with all the things that you should buy. And hopefully you do move in out of that stage pretty quickly, because unless you are just a multi-millionaire and you can just go throw a bunch of money at a lot of stuff, you're going to feel overwhelmed at that stage, and you're not going to feel like you can ever get prepared, because I don't think you ever are fully prepared. And so hopefully you go to that next stage where you're reading, you are realizing that you need to have a plan in place. You need to look at your situation where you live. Living here on the coast, one of the things that we are prepared for are hurricanes. And so when there's a depression or a hurricane in the Gulf of Mexico, everybody around here, they're running to the stores, and we don't have to do that, and that's a good feeling to not to have to worry about something like that. But then, you might be thinking about you might be in a job right now that's kind of iffy. And you might be looking at, hey, maybe your employer might be cutting back, and you might be getting a pink slip here pretty soon. So you might be preparing for, a personal financial collapse, not one of the whole system, but that might be something that hey, I got to look at, my situation and where I'm at, and my industry, and my family, got to take care of that. And then of course there's always the terrorism, nuclear war. I mean, we can go on and on and on. There's so many things out there, but hopefully you get to that place where you look at your situation, you look at, where you are, and you begin to plan, and you prep from that plan. You come up with a good plan, and you start plugging in and start doing all those kinds of things. Hopefully you get into a rhythm, and you start to feel a little bit more comfortable. You get into maybe that third or fourth year, that fifth year, a lot of people had marked as well. on the survey, and you start feeling a little bit more comfortable. You know, you're learning skills, you're getting those kinds of things. You might make a purchase, and you really, you know, pay a lot of attention to how that, you know, that thing is working. You don't want to just buy something, put it up in a closet somewhere, and just leave it there. I mean, you are working, you're planning, you are, you know, practicing skills that are important. You're being purposeful. You're going to some kind of training. You're putting layers of preparedness, whether that is, you know, in your home security, in your finances, in your food, in your water. You're putting layers of preps on, and hopefully you get to that point. I think the last one, and a lot of people aren't going to agree with me on this one, but I think the last one is when you start to build, you start being purposeful about building a mutual assistant group, and you start putting it out there and talking to other people about preparedness. I know a lot of people will say, Todd, hey, no way, what about OPSEC? You know, I think operational security is one of the most overused concepts in preparedness. And so the scope of this video is not to talk about that. I do have a video that I'll link below, OPSEC for Christians, that you can look at if you're interested in that. But you know, I think that's one of the things that we should be moving forward to. Hopefully you get to the point where you feel comfortable enough, and those people that you trust, you're able to talk to them about preparedness because you care about them, you love them, and you want to make sure that they're prepared as well. You know, that only benefits you because eventually they're probably going to wind up with you anyway, right? And so in doing that and in thinking about those stages of preparedness, I was thinking about, for the Christian, there's levels of stages of our Christian walk as well. And I wanted to talk to you about just, you know, you can look at it and you can come at it from a bunch of different points of view. You know, but somebody asked Jesus, what are the most important commandments? And Jesus said, you know, love the Lord your God with all your heart, all your soul, all your mind, and then love your neighbor as yourself. So loving God and then loving your neighbor are two stages that we should be living in. And the problem is we should be living in those simultaneously. The problem comes when Christians believe that they need to be right with God and they need to get right with God, and they can't do anything else until they're completely right with God. And so they go to church and they read their Bible, and then they have little hiccups in their life, and they struggle, and then they, you know, they're asking questions from God, and then maybe they get right with God again, or, you know, they feel comfortable with God again, and they're in this groove, and then life happens again. You know, things are going to happen in our lives. So if you are waiting for a point in your life when you are like 100%, you're a super Christian, and you can, you know, you're out there and you can defeat Satan with just a thump in the head, you know, that's never ever going to come. You know, we're supposed to be that Christian that is loving God and at the same time loving our neighbors. You know, Jesus told the disciples at that time, a ragtag team of guys, you know, on the mountain. Jesus is ascending up into heaven, and before he goes, the last thing he says is go into all the world and preach the gospel. And we have that thing that we should be doing that on a regular basis in our Christian walk. So that's a stage that we're loving God, but that we're also loving people. And I guess that's kind of where that OPSEC for Christianity, or for Christians, come in play for me, is loving your neighbor. And one of the ways that I know how to love my neighbor is to talk to them about preparedness. So anyway, I wanted to kind of throw that out there because I know that there's some Christians who are sitting on the pew and they're not doing anything effectively for Christ. You know, you got to get out there. You got to be a person who is living and serving Christ on a regular basis. And I promise you, you know, sometimes you don't feel like it. Sometimes you might even be depressed and you might not even want to get out there, not want to talk to anyone. But when you begin to serve, you start to things start to happen for you, and you get out of that, maybe that depression that you're in. You get out of you know, that feeling that you have, like, you know, you're not making a difference, and then things begin to happen and God begins to use you. So just a couple of different ideas. You know, if you are active in your church, if you're not active in your church, you need to be active. And there's, you know, being a pastor, I know that there are so many things that they're always available out there. You can always get involved with, you know, helping with the babies, helping with children, helping with the youth group, ushering, all those kinds of things. It's just a matter of going up to the pastor or you know, somebody in charge, one of the elders, and saying, hey, how can I get involved here? You know, maybe it's getting involved, you know, in a small group or something along those lines. Maybe you go out and you start serving the community in some kind of way. One of the things, if you just don't have any opportunities, is something that I put out there a while back, is that, you know, start a mutual assistant group / Bible study in your city. You know, we did that a while back, and you know, we meet here in my home and things are great. You know, we really enjoy our time where we are able to sit down, and there's people that come from all different denominations, but one thing that we have in common is that, you know, we believe in preparedness. And so you know, we talk about the Lord and we talk about our lives, and it's great. But you can do that as well. And I know right now on the website on prepperchurch.com, under the community groups tab, there are 11 other, I think 10 other people who have signed up to start Bible studies or / or mutual assistant groups in their cities. And so, you know, send me an email. I'll put you up there. You can, you know, people can contact you, and you can link up with someone, you know, at a coffee shop or at a restaurant, and talk about preparedness, talk about the Lord, and find those kinds of things in common. Who knows, you might find somebody that you can truly, you know, build a close relationship, a close tie with, not only in the Lord, but also in preparedness as well. So here's the thing: get out there and start serving the Lord in some way, in some capacity. Just don't be someone who's just sucking in, you know, all the messages and the sermons and you know, Christian music and all that kind of stuff. Whatever you do to worship the Lord, worship God, but also love your neighbor as well, and get out there. Guys, thanks for watching the video. Hey, you know, one of the things you can do to kind of support the video is to vote for Prepper Church on top Prepper websites. I know top Prepper websites, it's my own website, but I feel, you know, like I still want to ask for votes out there. You can do that. I'll put a link on the in the bottom of the video where you can vote for the website, and then also you can also vote for the website on the website itself, just clicking on the vote for me. But hey, give us a like, share us out, connect with me on Twitter or Facebook, you know, or just an email. I always like to hear from other people, and it's very, very encouraging when I hear from other people and read the comments, and I do really appreciate that. So anyway, hey guys, thanks so much. God bless.